Hello, Texas, and welcome to episode 5 of the Texas Porch. Regular staple this week in Texas sports and history will be coming up. We talk a little Alex Bregman in a wonderful endeavor that he is doing. We talk the latest in COVID-19, the somewhat good numbers that are coming in across our great Lone Star State. Cubes 2024, we discuss that, and Dak and Zeke are up to no good. But rapid fire housekeeping, a massive help to us. If you subscribe to the podcast, you should have these in your phones on the TexasPorch.com every Thursday. We like to interact with you as well. You can email us the TexasPorchPod@gmail.com. And we'd also love for you to rate us 5 stars. Drop a comment in there if you'd like to get a question to the game. But if it's your first show, I'm JP. My longtime buddies and me have a podcast about the greatest state in all the land. An abbreviated crew tonight, but introducing the guys for this episode. We have an award-winning journalist, anything but fake news, Josh Havard. Josh, how are you?
I'm good, JP. First off, I thought maybe we were going to open a beverage here, so whoever wants to join me.
Okay.
All right.
Josh,
sure.
Goodness.
Oh, nice job.
That is very realistic. I'm going hard again.
Now we can start.
Diet root beer with me. Going hard. But we have a big-time corporate exec soccer dad near Dallas, Mitchell Y. McDeer. Leathers, the Mitcher.
Mitchell Y. McDeer. That's such a random reference.
Yeah.
The reference of a character in a John Grisham novel. I think that was the
from 1989.
Who works his ass off day to night. I am doing well, JP. How are you?
PJ's doing well, very well. And we have the glue of the show so far, the most Texan of us all. That title is fluid, though. It could be stripped at any moment. But barbecue lover, taper of ankles, P. Diddy, Paul Dunham.
Howdy, gentlemen. Welcome to another midweek break here. Got my beverage here. We're ready to roll. Let's do it.
4-man crew tonight. Lamar and Kevin have not been banished out in the back pasture, but they will
maybe
yet. But they will be back soon. But starting out, COVID-19 Texas stats I came across before we started recording here. Gents, 14,624 cases of the coronavirus in Texas, 318 deaths. But more important to note, and you've seen this not as much in the fake news / real news media, but 2,580 recoveries. So, I mean, as we've known since this started, more people are recovering it than are perishing it, but there can be some nuance here. It's still really serious, but at the same time, a lot of people still recover and most likely do recover. But I think the main issue now is still getting tests out there and eventually getting that vaccine, would you say?
Yeah, I think we're moving into the stage of this is, at least from a public standpoint, that, hey, this wasn't as bad as we thought, because, they were talking about hundreds of thousands and millions of deaths. But like you said, a lot of nuance here. This is pretty dangerous stuff still. Mm-hmm. And so it'll be interesting to see how, there's talk about opening up the economies in Texas and around the U.S. It will be interesting to see how they do that, because obviously this thing's not going away.
Yeah, I think it seems really strange to get too much, on the edge of our seat about, all right, everything's good, go back at it, go to normal life. No, that's just not going to be reality, I'm afraid, anytime real soon. I mean, yes, there is maybe a little brightening at the end of the tunnel. I don't think it's a full-on light yet. You can't see the light bulb, but I think it's, headed in that direction, because people are being forced to actually distance and do all the things that they're telling us to do.
Yeah.
My totally looking into it, but actually here locally, Lufkin, Angelina County hasn't been bad in terms of the numbers. Nacogdoches, right beside us, has been a lot worse. They had 71 along with 6 or 7 deaths. So a lot of that was at one nursing home. I'm not sure. Here locally, it might have actually gotten slightly worse than in the bigger cities, which might be with what you were talking about last week about how not many people here really go by the cautions, and maybe that's biting them a little bit.
I mean, with the just the number of cases, that could be anything from great local management, great social distancing type stuff. It could also just mean that early on, 5 people had it in Nacogdoches, whereas nobody had it in Lufkin. So it took a long time for it to sort of make its way over there. If you start with a little bit, higher number, I mean, this thing is all about exponential growth, right? So, I think that's what happened with New York. The initial cases were there. Washington State, the initial cases were there. And so it just sort of blew up. That's also why, what are the groups of 10? Is that the maximum here in Texas?
Yeah, I think so.
I think so.
Yeah. So like a group of 10, like obviously you want it to be less than that, but obviously if you have groups of 25, your chance of growth is much, much, much higher.
Yeah, I think it's going to be interesting to see what happens, like epidemiologically. That's a big word for me, but like the whole study of how this all goes, because to be honest, is anybody truly able to track some of the details? They're going to have a lot of data, but I think right now the shift, a couple weeks ago began where, all right, we got to try to figure out how to test more people, how to quarantine more people, how to get the message out there. I just don't know if we're going to be able to get any really solid numbers and figure out, okay, what can we do different next time if this ever happens again with something like this or whatever? How do we manage it differently? Do we jump on it right away and everybody gets locked down right instantly, within a day? Or, I don't know if we're going to be able to pull enough data from it. There are going to be a lot of studies done, I'm sure. But I'm wondering on the tracking, because there's so many people that have never shown up on anybody's radar that probably had it, that self-quarantined, they battled through it, they did fine. They never got any medication, they never sought any medical advice, they never registered as a positive case in any way or had a test done. But there's going to be a lot of those, and I guess that's always the case, even with flu and everything else. But I'm just curious what things are going to look like when we all take a breath in however many months and figure out, okay, what does the data say, and how do we do anything differently than the way it was handled?
Yeah, and what happens when it comes back up? I mean, everybody talks about the second wave of this. The second wave of the Spanish flu was worse than the first one, and that was the deadliest. So if and when that happens, when it gets warm and then back cold again, what happens then? And then, I mean, are we going through the same thing? Or like Mitch kind of referenced earlier, do we have the bearings, both economically and just from a structural standpoint for states, nations, counties, and little podunkvilles to be able to handle it? That's because, right? I mean, hasn't Fauci and his folks said that it's inevitable that it's going to come back?
Yeah, but I don't see if this, when and if, when this one comes back or when another one hits a different, strain, I don't see us shutting down our economy again. I just feel like we will have measures, or at least we'll have the experience to know that we can do these things, social distance, be careful, wear masks, that type of thing. I mean, our society wasn't ready for that. We didn't have masks. We didn't have, we didn't even know what social distancing meant. But now, we kind of do. So I feel like if that happens again, it'll be a lot quicker to get to the public to say, hey, keep your distance, wear masks, wash your hands, blah, 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 so that we don't have to, 90% shut down the economy.
Yeah, I feel like, from a healthcare standpoint, just, being kind of not on the front lines in any way, but dealing with patients all the time, I think what's going to happen is we are going to be so much more prepared. I tell you right now, in my situation, we had zero protective equipment that would be appropriate for this. I mean, I don't work in a hospital setting. I don't work in a doctor's office. If that was the case, it would be different. But in my situation, just working at a school, we wouldn't have been prepared in any way, shape, or form if we had to, plan for that kind of thing. It just wasn't something we ever even thought of,
Boy Scouts, be prepared, Paul.
Well, I know, but
never learned that one. Speaking of tracking, have you guys heard of this app? There may be a couple apps, kind of Big Brother, but that you can turn on and it will track wherever you are. And then if you test positive, it will, and say, I probably contracted it, 3 days ago. It will go back, take your last 3 days data, see where you've been, see who you're in contact with. It's like a, crowdsource app for virus tracking. Have you heard of this?
Oh yeah. And thanks for following me on Twitter, by the way, because I did tweet about this. No, just my sarcastic response. That got one whole retweet. I don't trust it, and maybe that makes me sorry, but I think that makes me fit in with the rest of Texans. I don't want Google or Apple, and you think of the combination of them both. I don't want them tracking me. I don't buy that. I don't think we need that level. I mean, this is kind of like, again, I don't want to make it seem like I'm Mr. Paranoid and we're hosting this late night trucker overnight show, but I don't think it's
shout out to the late night truckers.
Yeah.
Thanks for listening.
I don't trust huge entities, government, corporations, whatever. And, let's just give this over to them. Let's just extend our, eventually, liberties to them. I would not do that. And I don't know if that makes me sorry or not, but I'm going to do everything. But then again, I mean, they've got it all anyway. I always joke.
I was going to say, go ahead. Sorry.
No, I just always joke with y'all that, I mean, they're tracking us anyway. They're listening anyway. Or are they?
No, man, see, but that's the thing. They've already got it. They've got the information. You can turn off all those settings in your phone. I'm not trying to be that guy, but they've already got the data. It just because it doesn't pop up on a little screen for you in an app that's showing you what it's telling everybody else, what's available. That data already exists. They can already track you. They know what you're doing. Just the Facebook ads alone, or whatever social media app you want to throw out there. You sit there and you're talking to your buddy about pipe wrenches, and then the next thing you've got an ad for a pipe wrench on your screen. I mean, come on, let's be honest. That happens to all of us. So they can track it. They know what we're here. I'm not a big oh my gosh Big Brother guy, but it's just come on. We got to be real. That data already exists. They can track it if they want to.
Some more numbers. Harris County has the most cases in Texas. That's not too surprising with the highest population. Over 3,700 cases and 46 deaths in Harris County. That's the most in our great state. Dallas County, up closer to used to's Dallas guys, but Dallas County a little less than half as many as Harris County, and almost 1,800 cases with 32 deaths in Dallas County. Josh, you're awfully silent. I know you're not bashful, but our off podcast text, are you inundated enough with it at the old newspaper?
I see plenty of it from the time I walk into the door till the time I walk out. And to be honest, by the time I get home, I'm just watching whatever Netflix show or whatever cartoon with the kids. But I'm like, I'm with y'all on the numbers. Like, I sit there and the news has it updated on the people, the cases, the deaths. And I honestly don't know what it means. I'm like, it's more than yesterday. It doesn't seem like it's climbing as much, but I'm not as much of a genius about the numbers as the people that know what they're talking about. So in a bad way, like I guess I'm kind of desensitized by it. I know it's terrible, but I don't know how terrible it is, if it's getting better, if it's not. It seems like it's getting a little bit better overall, but I guess that's just my long way of saying I don't know.
We just don't understand, just on a whole basis, we don't understand exponential growth as well, populate, like epidemiology, like these are things that probably 95% of us really haven't given much thought to. So this type of thing is hard to understand from a bunch of levels: health level, data level, population level.
And Governor Abbott is going to make an announcement coming up Friday about the reopening of Texas businesses. Shout out to Lisa for repurposing this quote for me, but in part, this is not the whole statement, but you get the gist of it. But he says, we're not going to be a rush to get to the gates and everybody suddenly open at once. Understand everyone that they must reopen to stimulate the economy, but at the same time, contain the spread. Is this too soon? I know business owners out there would be shouting with the bullhorn into the microphone, connected to a PA system and another microphone. No, it's not soon enough. We should have done this a while ago, but I'll say, can we wait a little bit just so we know? I mean, it just seems like we're in such a rush to get the economy going. Newsflash, I think the economy, yes, is a good thing to have going well, but not knowing everything. Like, we haven't flattened it enough, and that's what I worry about. All of this, but specifically where I live, where y'all live, where my other family is, it seems a little too soon to me. I guess I'm kind of hedging my statement there, but it just seems a little too soon.
if we do open up some businesses, I would hope that if that's the case, they are going to actually really make sure that businesses are paying attention to how to do that safely, because it's going to vary between business to business. Let's just say if it's a restaurant bar, for example, and they're going to open back up their dining space to customers. If in order for that to work, it's going to have to be everybody is using a mask, which you're going to have to eat, so you're going to have to drink. That creates a problem. Otherwise, how are you going to possibly control it? Because there's still going to be somebody out there in every situation, in every community for a while that could potentially be spreading it. And if you're not still doing those things, how are you going to open that business to a greater extent than it is now? I mean, we're letting, you can buy alcohol and take it home with you. You can, all those things that they're allowing, curbside stuff, which is great. I'm glad those businesses can still function in some degree. But if you're opening that back up, I just don't know how you can, number one, monitor how a business is going to really follow whatever new guidelines are being recommended by the powers that be. And two, like, how are you going to keep tabs on that?
I'd like to see what Abbott says, because I don't think there's any way. Well, I kind of doubt that Abbott will say, let's open up the economy on May 1st if testing is not, just everywhere by May 1st. Because I mean, that's really the only way you can open up. You can get people around each other is if you have just widespread testing. Otherwise, you don't know where it is. You don't know who has it. What local communities have it. There's no way it'll work. Absolutely no way.
And on the school front, schools as of now are closed through May 4th, as of course all y'all know with the kiddos. But Fort Bend ISD has already announced that they're not coming back. And I think that's inevitable, that they're going to cancel schools for the rest of the year. And on the collegiate front, just today, commissioners of the major college football conferences held a 30-minute conference call with Vice President Pence and stressed that college sports cannot return from the shutdown until campuses have been reopened. And that's Captain Obvious. But this comes after Trump said on Wednesday that we want all our sports leagues open. And why is it such a big deal for colleges? And, of course, most of it, if not all, have gone online through the summer. And I was just talking to the great Mike Bloomgren, Rice coach, for my day job. We did a Zoom earlier this week. He said coaches need about 6 weeks to get a team ramped up. And you can't do that if all other students are required to be off campus and you have just football players on campus. And that goes for Texas A&M, Baylor, Texas Tech, wherever, TCU. At the very least, we're not going to have it on time in the fall. And I think, Paul, on your front, I mean, that affects high school football. Josh, on your front, I think that affects high school football too. Or I guess first up, Josh, do you think that would UIL, are they going to go lockstep with the colleges, or do they kind of figure it out on their own?
I'm totally not certain. UIL hasn't even officially canceled spring sports yet.
Exactly.
I've been talking to plenty of kids around here that are really hopeful that it's going to happen. And I think most of them know that eventually it's probably going to get canceled. But I've got no idea. Like, there's just so many variables because I would assume smaller areas like Lufkin and, just areas like that are going to be open a lot more than bigger cities. But, what happens whenever Lufkin's in the same district with a Houston area school? You can't really have them traveling back and forth to a place where they're not going to school. So it's kind of a dicey situation, but I'm really not sure. And in terms of college, I really think, like you said before, they're going to have to be back in classes before they totally go, because if you're going to play, which both you and I have, made fun of the student athlete term and that they're not really the students, but in Rice, different story. So you can go do that disclaimer since Rice really does have student athletes. But, how do you say, how do you put these kids that aren't on campus and just say, okay, we're going to go play football games, screw everything else. We don't care about their education. We're going to play football games in empty stadiums. So there's just a whole bunch of hoops to jump through. And who knows? I mean, if they found the testing or whatever to turn the corner at some point, then that all changes at some point. But right now, when you're in the middle of it, you kind of have a hard time seeing exactly how colleges would start back. Although I think the pros do have an option of they can get creative. These are adult athletes, and their baseball, they can isolate them or whatever. But you can't really do that with college kids, and definitely not high school kids.
Yeah, I think from my standpoint, I'm just thinking about logistics. So okay, we get the okay. Let's say we're not back in school, but whatever, we're back to doing whatever. We get a couple weeks, just a total off the wall example, but let's say we get 2 weeks of football workouts or something. I mean, the logistics there. Okay, you get 75 kids or so on a varsity roster. You've got, for us, a couple of athletic trainers. You've got student aides that are, there's 20 of them roaming around. There's a handful of managers. There's a handful of filmers, kids that are helping with various things, running, all the different types of things. You got, 16 or so coaches. You bring all those people together, all of a sudden, there is no social distancing anymore whatsoever. So it's kind of got to be an all or none thing. Like the fans are not even a factor if we're just talking about, over 100 people in and out of one facility every day, going out, being right next to each other, going through drills, colleaguing, hand-to-hand contact, and doing the job of being in a sport, being an athlete, sweating on each other and the whole bit, next to each other in a locker. I mean, what are we going to separate them all by a locker? Like, okay, well, that doesn't matter because we're all touching each other out on the field. Like, I'm taping ankles. The reference on taping ankles is never more true. I'm literally 3 feet from you and I'm touching your body. I'm not going to, be able to functionally wear a mask and truly protect us both in that situation.
All right, Josh, I saw this and I thought, since we gang up on you all the time, as you being the lone Astros guy on the podcast, and this could be the only time in recorded history that we... Huh?
That was just my boo. Sorry.
Alex Bregman has launched Feed Houston campaign, Feed HOU. They tied it in with social media and everything, but it's a $1 million fundraising campaign to help feed Houston area residents that are experiencing food insecurity during the coronavirus, but they'll have proceeds, nothing skimmed off the top, like some of these campaigns do, that go to office things and whatnot, but they go directly to the Houston Food Bank. We mentioned those numbers earlier. Houston's, numbers-wise, getting hit the hardest from the coronavirus, but Bregman and Mattress Mac got it started with $100,000 donations. And sorry, I cannot cue this up, guys, but Paul Wall, Mitch, has dropped a special album dubbed Frozen Face Volume 3. Not 1 or 2, but Volume 3. But so, Josh, does that kind of invigorate you that the Astros can actually do something good, especially in a time of need like this? Or is that a shot?
Well, they've got a good history of doing things good off the field, but their PR department's terrible. And so the bad gets overshadowed a lot more. And then the obvious of the cheating scandal, which, that's not going away. But, Bregman, I think it's a great thing. Obviously, it's a great thing they're doing. Him and Mattress Mac, Paul Wallace. I saw videos of them at the food place helping out. And, of course, that's probably more for show, but the money isn't. And them putting that money out there while putting their names to it. And it's in Houston. Houston still loves all those guys. Mm-hmm. So that's great to get the community behind them, because they'll still, it doesn't matter what they did in terms of them. They put their names out there. They'll get behind the celebrities as much as a lot of us still bash the celebrities and what everybody says about baseball players, football players don't mean anything. They kind of do in situations like this, because it doesn't matter if you and I went out there and we decide we're going to start something. We're not raising $1 million. We might be good and raise 1,000, but they can just reach so many more people. What I did think was funny is I saw on Chandler Rome's Twitter account, he's the Astros beat writer. He's got people just bashing him, saying how Alex Bregman is doing this just to get people to ignore the cheating scandal and get him off his back. But he's like, well, what do you want him to do? It's a public thing. It's like, if he silently does it, he's not going to raise any more money than he puts in there. So, they're going to take their beating whenever the season starts back, and that's fine. But I think it's a great thing that these guys are doing. And Mattress Mac's always been great about helping his money with Houston. So, I think Alex Bregman, give him some props for doing that.
This is kind of off the beaten path, but sources tell me that Mattress Mac is an overcusser, that he loves cussing. I don't know why, just since you mentioned
cussing and gambling.
Yeah, and the gambling too. That's undocumented.
Who doesn't like cussing and gambling? Come on. This is Texas.
Here's a great story. I saw this and I said, hey, we host a Texas podcast. We've got to talk about this. Mavs owner, there's even audio. We're getting so big time we have audio for this. But Mavs, you okay back there? You all right?
Yeah, I just fell down, stumbled, pardon fell.
Mavs owner Mark Cuban has been on the media tour. Sunday, a familiar topic came up, and I like the lead-in this week with Chris Wallace. This was on Sunday.
So I know Mark Cuban likes publicity as much as the next person, maybe more than the next person. You're not really serious about this, are you?
Hey, unique circumstances. You just never know, Chris. I never would have considered it prior to a month ago, but now things are changing rapidly and dramatically. So there's different ways to get through those issues you mentioned. So I'm not saying no, but it's not something that I'm actively pursuing. I'm just keeping the door open.
But are you saying that this is something that is serious?
As it is today, I'd say probably not, that it's not going to happen. But again, so much can change. You just never know. This is not something we've seen before. This is obviously a unique set of circumstances. And so I'm just not going to say no. It's just, you just don't know what can happen between now and November.
So I'll defer to the political guru on here, Mitch. I thought of you when I saw this. I was like, we've got to talk about this. And I know he's being serious and truthful. I'm thinking more of Cube's 2024. The way Wallace kind of led into that was getting in on the independent ticket in 2020, which, I mean, realistically, that's not going to happen. Some states have already closed down their, I guess, filing period. I don't know if that's I'm getting out of my depth here, Mitch, but what do you think about Cube's 2024, if that's more realistic?
Yeah. Well, 2020 is definitely out of the question. I don't know about for filing reasons, because I think you still can file for a third party, but he's not going to do that. I mean, I think it's pretty well known that he's not a huge fan of Trump's. And I don't know that he's a huge fan of Biden's. So I don't see him getting in the fray there. 2024, who knows? I mean, this is probably a little bit of, toss it out there, a little publicity, type thing. I actually think Mark Cuban is a little more sincere than most, marketing billionaire gurus. I think he's just got a little more sincerity to him. And so, I mean, I still don't know if it's a possibility that he would do 2024, but I know if he did, I'd be interested.
You just can't win as an independent, though. I mean, if you're going to run, you want to win. And again, this is opening up a huge can, but he's not winning as an independent. I mean, 92, he had Perot that was a big factor there because the gurus say he took votes away from Bush, right, and Clinton won. So, I don't know. Yeah, he could make a difference, but he's not winning, right?
Is an independent? No, I don't know. I mean, I guess I would say the best time ever to run as an independent is probably now, because everyone hates the other side so much, and really a lot of people hate their own side. So it's probably, but still, it just wouldn't. I don't think it would pan out because you take somebody like me. Like I'm not the biggest liberal, but I'm certainly not a conservative. I'll probably default, to Joe Biden, even though I'm not a huge fan. But let's say Cuban were running. I mean, I like Cuban a lot more than either of those guys, but I still wouldn't risk taking a vote. You know what I mean? So it'd have to be a well thought out, well planned out. Everybody would have to be, would know that what they're doing, what their vote is going to is possible.
Okay, had to get to that. Back to more disturbing matters involving notable sporting figures. Dak Prescott has not been respecting social distancing. Stories have been out the last few weeks. We've seen them pics with him, our guy Dez, Dak and Zeke, and Dez, and then our soon-to-be podcast friend, hopefully, our Lufkin guy Des, tweeted all this out. So that's what made a lot of it, but there have been other pictures and accounts too. But anyway, he catered Nick and Sam's famous Dallas eatery, and 30 friends were supposedly there. He disputes that. He doesn't apologize. He had a statement. Didn't want to read it so much. It was a longer statement, but he doesn't apologize. But he says it wasn't a party. It was a dinner for less than 10, which still breaks the social distancing mandate for that area. But Stephen Jones has come out. He has said the club has talked to Dak. But this goes again along with these athletes. It doesn't apply to me so much. And I'm not saying that Dak is a bad guy, but this isn't the latest where something has come up where you kind of question his judgment. But, I mean, this isn't even talking on the field, Dak, where my kind of in a box opinion that we can unwrap if and when they ever play football again. But he's not the quarterback that's going to lead them back to a Super Bowl. There's your hot take. Mm-hmm. But first with fellow Cowboys devotee Josh. You make much of this, or you kind of in the Dak fan side of it, where fans of Dak, I'm sure, say, hey, that's Dak. He just got to worry about playing football. He can have a party if he wants. What do you think, Josh?
Well, that's what they're going to say. And I don't know. We probably discussed this plenty of times, but athletes think they're bulletproof anyway. So they think it really doesn't apply to them. I mean, otherwise they wouldn't just be putting it out there, like, on their social media accounts. So if you're a Dak supporter, you're going to say, well, he's, focused on football. And if you are a reasonable person, you're probably like, what's he doing? If you hate him and you're like, really, what's he doing? So obviously he shouldn't be out there. And anytime it takes a few days to put away a report saying that there was 30 people there, there's probably something going on. So, I guess that's my long-winded way of saying he shouldn't be doing it, but Dak fans are going to forgive him, and Dak haters and neutral people are going to say, well, what's he doing?
Let's be honest. Athletes at that level, elite athletes, have been catered to for most of their adult lives, if not more than that. To expect that their behavior would be perfect is certainly not something that I would expect. I'm not standing up for them. I'm not saying they should. Obviously, this is not something anybody should be doing because, as we all know, everybody that interacts with any one group, where they're grouping up together like that doesn't follow the guidelines and whatnot, has contact with other people, and then that whole thing just spreads, and that's how we get into this mess. But I feel like they probably did it. I mean, I feel like this is just one isolated incident. They happened to get somebody called them out and alerted authorities, and from what I understand, the Prosper police went out the next day, 24 hours later. Like, that's we're not having a party. Look around. Like, what are they going to show then? Yeah, I did it. I'm so sorry. No, that didn't happen.
In my wrapping that up, I think it could be tinfoil hat theory guy, but my thought is that this is Dak thinking, again, it's ridiculous to think this, but maybe he's upset about the contract or lack of one being signed. He's kind of got a sour face about not being getting $36 million or getting franchised for $33 million instead. Maybe he's unhappy with the contract, so this is kind of his middle finger to the Cowboys. But Stephen Jones just said it's not happening anymore. But this week in Texas sports and history, a lot of these are courtesy of Texas State Historical Association, but on April 15th of 1972, so that would have been today on this date, 1972, the Texas Rangers hosted the California Angels in the first game at Arlington Stadium.
Yes.
Wow.
A glorious day.
Didn't Rhines refer to it as the turd on the turnpike? Was that it?
Absolutely, yes.
Okay.
I think that's right.
Bleacher seats and the whole bit, man.
Yeah.
They pieced that thing together from what I understand. I went once, during my younger years. I remember it being awesome because we were watching football. We were watching baseball, but I have pictures of Nolan Ryan actually pitching that evening. I think I showed them to you, JP, at some point, but Nolan Ryan on the mound that night. And of course, as a kid that wasn't really all that into baseball, I didn't really know how profound that was until looking back and like, wait a minute, I've watched him pitch more than once. That's awesome. So it was pretty cool.
Yeah, I think nostalgia-wise, that's still up there in great Rangers memories. But famous Texas birthday, April 16th, 1971. Selena is born in Lake Jackson, Texas, down just a little bit south of Houston.
All right.
April 17th of 1871, the state legislature approved a bill providing for the organization of the Texas Agricultural and Mechanical College.
Wow.
This for you, Josh.
Love that song. I've been to more than one wedding that played at.
But they appropriated $75,000. That really surprised me. $75,000 for the construction of academic buildings, suitable accommodations, and over 2,400 acres were donated by local citizens. It later opened in 1876. Can I tell y'all a secret?
Please.
Pretty cool fight song, or pretty cool, I don't know. Am I off there?
It's got to be a fight song, right?
Yeah.
Aggies are
You
punching.
remember Manziel walking out there when you were hearing that?
Yeah. Of all the Texas colleges, except for the great Texas A&M Commerce and Rice, I've been to more Aggies football games than the others. So, nothing wrong. Good old Aggies. I would rank.
Never been.
I have never been to a major college sports game.
Okay.
Wow.
How about that?
All right.
Wow.
We can put.
Can I still be on the podcast?
You're a political guy. You've already
Okay.
proved your worth tonight. But
You
it was over
established yourself in other ways, Mitch.
your personality too. But over 2,400 acres donated by local citizens. It later opened 5 years later in 1876. Josh, here's one for you. April 19th of 1990, Hakeem Olajuwon scores a career-high 52 points. Where were you, Josh, when that happened? Remember now. Go.
52. I'm drawing a blank on that one. I remember quadruple double, but 52. Who did he score it against?
I didn't write that, or whoever got the notes together didn't write that down. So,
Okay, well, he had plenty of good nights. A couple
okay.
titles.
And if I was doing better homework, this would have gotten a lot more billing in the show. But on this date, on April 21st of 1836, Texas forces won the Battle of San Jacinto, the concluding military event of the Texas Revolution. What's more Texan than that? Facing
Yeah, baby.
General Santa Anna's Mexican army, 1,200 men encamped to what is now southeastern Harris County. General Sam Houston disposed his forces in battle about 3:30 during siesta time, and the Texans' movements were screened by trees and the rising ground. This is all off the top of my head. And evidently, Santa Anna had no lookouts. The Texas line sprang forward on the run with cries, "Remember the Alamo, remember Goliad." The battle lasted only 18 minutes. And according to Sam Houston's official report, only 9 of the 910 Texans were killed or mortally wounded, and 30 were wounded less seriously. So, in future years of the Texas Porch podcast, we'll highlight different episodes around this. There's no Texas Porch podcast without that event in Texas history, right?
This is true.
Now, was San Jacinto the come and take it battle, or was that another?
Come and take it, I believe, did happen at the Alamo. Obviously, that did not go well. But
I don't think so right now.
Oh, maybe not. Maybe I'm remembering Texas history wrong. Mrs. Laws would be disappointed right now in 7th grade Commerce Middle School Texas history class.
Okay, well, JP's producer just looked it up, and
Yes.
it says that it was Battle of Gonzales.
That's what my reports see too, yes.
The first military engagement of the Texas Revolution. Not that that has anything to do with this week in Texas history.
Here's one for you. April 21st of 1980, Tony Romo was born, and later he would come up very short in many big games in Cowboys history.
That's
Go
the
on,
league for
accomplish
Tony
nothing.
Romo.
That was too easy, though. He is winning in life with all of his broadcast and, for some reason, golf accomplishments. But
Yeah, just check his contract.
Let me tell you, Tony Romo is my favorite non-ultimate winner of all time.
Yeah, because he didn't win anything. That's, I mean, whole other podcast. But we're booking all these other podcast episodes. But Josh, I'll give you final say. Just you've heard my rant 1,975 times that he's celebrated like one of the greats in Cowboys history. He's got the great numbers in Cowboys history, but help me out, Josh. What am I trying to say?
What is there to say? I mean, he has great numbers. Didn't win a whole lot of big games. A lot of it was more Jerry Jones' fault than his. I mean, it was always entertaining. You just never, you usually knew how it was going to end. I was there when he made his debut, I think.
Mm-hmm. Oh, wow.
Nice.
When they benched,
Romo was. Oh, sorry. Go ahead, Josh.
Didn't they bench? Was it Testaverde for him? Whenever he came out, maybe
Wow.
I think so.
The things wrong, but he came out there in the Giants game, I think, and immediately threw an interception. Fittingly, that might not have been his debut, but that's when he took over.
The thing about him, he was the consummate underdog. He was always an underdog. It seemed like.
Yeah.
Like he never got the monkey off his back. He, Eastern Illinois, no draft. Like he was the consummate underdog. And he had my favorite quote of his entire career was, if this is the worst thing that happens to me, I'll be okay. Like, so he had perspective during. I mean, I'm not saying it was the smartest PR move on his part because it certainly wasn't. But in terms of perspective, I mean, you got to give it to the guy.
I believe that was 2008 Philadelphia, right, Josh? Last game of the year, 44-6. Does that sound right?
We can't say the actual word, but yeah, that was. That wasn't a debut, but that was certainly something. That was everything could possibly go wrong, and it did. Like, I don't even know what to say about that one.
All right, here's one. We have more audio here. Carthage native, Nacogdoches born, and Rice national champion Philip Umber, April 21st of 2012. That was a perfect game for the Chicago White Sox in Seattle.
But now he's got a chance for something special. He's swung. Krasinski has got to throw it down. It's a perfect game for Philip Umber. On the 21st of April, 2012 in Seattle. The 20th perfect game in regular season history.
Yeah, not to correct the great Dave Sims, but I think it was the 21st perfect game, as my research said. And there have been two more since then. And actually bragging montage here, but actually talked to Philip Umber a couple weeks ago for a Rice Zoom. We were recording. East Texas guy, wow. Perfect game. But that goes down in the annals of great feats by native Texans and even more specific native East Texans and Rice guys as well.
So great. So great. I mean, especially for a guy who's pitched his whole life. And, I actually don't know how his career ended up or possibly it's still going on. I don't know.
No, he's out of the game.
But, that is just obviously something he'll never forget. I mean, one of 21 at the time. I mean, come on. That is just such greatness.
All right, guys.
Now, if I'm not mistaken, real quick, one of us has witnessed a perfect game.
Yeah, I was going to get into that. That just... When that anniversary comes up in August, let's have a longer chat about that.
Let's do that, shall we?
But wait a minute. So you were at that game?
Yes.
I was at that game.
That's so wonderful.
Yes, it was. It's great. It was a boring game, but we'll get to that.
Oh my gosh.
What?
You see?
It was.
No, it wasn't. It was a perfect
I
game.
What was going on. Anyway,
right.
I know better now.
Yeah, that's true. You were 16. I guess you'd have been 15-year-old Paul then, watching that with your Boy Scout troop of Kyle Lowe, Jonathan Andreessen, and others, right?
Oh, wow. Well, not some names. Yes, sir.
Hey, that reminds me, speaking of great games to be at and Arlington Stadium, I was at the
that was the ballpark.
Bo Jackson game.
Wow.
Was that the famous photo where he didn't get in a fight? That was Robin Ventura, but he got the ball hit.
Ground ball from Bo Jackson, popped up, hit him in the lip, and then he pitches for another few innings. He's just got blood just streaming on his lip onto his jersey. Just such greatness.
Wow.
Baseball, very, very fun. All right, gents, a fun edition of the Texas Porch. What do you think?
I agree. Yes,
Okay.
for sure.
Yeah.
Always fun.
Y'all have a great week, gents, and we'll talk to you next week, all right?
Adios.
Have a good one.
The Texas Porch, Texas talk with a touch of sports, a big help to us. Can you please subscribe? Give us a 5-star rating. That is a massive help. Follow us on Twitter, Texas Porch Pod. Also find us on thetexasporch.com. You can match our words with our funny faces and find us on Facebook as well. And also thanks to my big buddies, Josh, Mitch, and Paul for joining us here on the Texas Porch. Have a great rest of this night. God bless, and we'll talk to you next week out here on the Texas Porch.
Yes. Yes.